The Cuban Missile Crisis was an important event in the Cold War. The crisis involved a dispute between the US and USSR, or Russia. This is a picture taken in NYC of people protesting the Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba is a small island 90 miles off the coast of Florida and was influenced by the US for a very long time. But during the time of the Missile Crisis, Cuba had just gone through a revolution bringing new power to the ranks. Fidel Castro overthrew dictator Fulgencio Batista in 1959. Fidel Castro formed ties with the USSR and soon declared his communist ways. He was a firm believer in the Marxism-Leninism and made it public in December of 1961, effectively cutting off from the US influence on Cuba. With Castro in power, life of the peasants improved, but he encouraged guerrilla wars against imperialism and neocolonialism. Because of his new ways, hundreds of thousands of people fled. Many of the exiled came to the U.S., and on April 17, 1961, the U.S. sent in 1,500 armed Cubans to the Bay of Pigs, where they were soon defeated by armed Cuban forces. Nikita Khrushchev was a Russian leader who was responsible for many of the actions that took place during the missile crisis, but he was removed from power in 1964. President John Kennedy was president of the U.S. at the time and made sure the people were educated about what was happening. He enacted a naval blockade and was ready to use force if necessary. He even threatened nuclear war. But he ultimately took missiles out of Turkey so Russia would remove missiles from Cuba, stopping a nuclear war. At first, the Russians denied their presence, and it resulted in a 13-day standoff in Cuba. The Russians had a secret plan for their missiles in Cuba. The U.S. eventually found out that there were missiles in Cuba by aerial photos taken by fighter jets. These are some of the political cartoons that were released during the 13-day standoff. A fear of the nuclear war spread through Cuba and the U.S., and they realized there was potential for extreme violence. Because no one really wanted war, the agreement was made that Russia and the U.S. would withdraw their missiles from Cuba and Turkey respectively. Thank you.